All right, Black Box Radio. I am so excited. I don't have a mic tonight. My mic went up. So if I sound funny, work with me. Work with me. It went up. It's not working, but we still here. It's cool. I'm in South Carolina, so it's cool here, and I'm on my way to Baltimore. And my brother here says it's snowing. Oh my gosh, it's cold up in Bmore in my spot. But listen, we're gonna try to get in there tomorrow. Hope my plane lands. If not, we're gonna come later. But I just want to say welcome to Black Box Radio, guys. I'm Queen. I'm a host at Black Box Radio. We are a multimedia platform illustrating Black excellence. We platform Black people. We expose Black genius, and we more than anything, we disseminate information. And that information can go to our community or it can go to other communities. This is the place where we humanize the Black experience. It's just ordinary people being extraordinary. So I want you guys to please like, share, subscribe, go on our YouTube channel. We're trying to build that space. We need you guys to like, let me say it again, like, share, and don't forget to subscribe so we can get in this algorithm. We got to black up these algorithms because you see how the world is. You need some real Black people talking about some real stuff. I'm going to say stuff tonight. We're going to be respectful. So, guys, listen, we're in the Men in Black series. This is the most important series of 2025 so far. This is a series of 8 Black men. They're international. They're in Baltimore. We had a young man in DC. These are 8 Black men being amazing in their spaces. And we wanted to platform Black men. We wanted to celebrate National Black History Month by celebrating Black men. Black men don't get all the love they should get, but here, Black Box Radio, getting love, they're getting shine, and we're gonna have a lot of fun doing it. So we're on this is 6 of 8. You see that Black man sitting there? We got Malcolm P. Ruff, but we're coming back to him. We've had 6 Black men. I just want to show you guys on last Sunday, we had Kareem, and he was in the Philippines. Kareem has a coffee brand in the Philippines. He's an international Black man now. He's an expatriate, and he has a small business in the Philippines. So I want to check him out. That's on YouTube. And then we had Kwame, Brother Kwame. Brother Kwame is a Pan-Africanist. He's also a kidney disease survivor. So we talked about taking care of your health. It's like, listen, you have to be careful because you can't do nothing without your health. Your health is your wealth. And you see number 3 there. We had a young man. He's out of DC. Brother Rich. Brother Rich is a custom jeweler. He designs grills, but he also is a PhD student at Temple. So he's in every realm. He's urban, but he's also educated. So I love that brother. And then we had 4 was Sydney, Brother Sydney. Brother Sydney is a principal, a graduate of my university, the Morgan State University. And he is also a principal in Baltimore at Connections Academy. All of these interviews are on YouTube, so please pull up and check them out. And last night we had the master barber, the man. We had Troy Staten. Troy is a master barber, but he's also the founder of a social enterprise called More Than a Shop, where they teach where barbers and beauticians service the community with tools for mental health, for access to information. So we're using the shop where everybody's comfortable to distribute information. So that's where we are. So that was 5 of 8. But tonight, we are at 6 of 8. There go my brother. Tonight we have Delegate Malcolm P. Ruff Esquire. Say hi to the people, brother.
What's going on, my beautiful Black people? So glad to be on with you, Queen. I got a chance to check out some of the earlier episodes of this series, so I'm ready to get into it. Very, very, especially my brother Troy. He's one of my big brothers.
Really?
And, love the fact that y'all got to talk about everything Black Baltimore on his episode.
He sure did. He went back history. He pulled the history out. He talked about shops I forgot about. So that's nice to see. So Malcolm, tell us a little bit about you. We know that you're doing great things. You're a delegate and you're a lawyer. But right now, I want to hear, like, who is little Malcolm? Where did Malcolm go to school? Where did he exist? And in Maryland, tell people about you a little bit. Then we're going to jump in.
Sounds good. Well, first of all, thank you for thinking of me for this series. I am very much a person that identifies significantly with my Blackness. And, that was instilled in me from a very early age by my mother and the community of people that surrounded me as I came into this world. So doing this series is very important because we were able to hear the State of the State speech last week from our 63rd governor,
Yes.
the only Black governor
The only.
that's active in the state, in the entire United States.
Wow.
Wes Moore, our good brother. And he talked about a lot of things, but one of the things that he specifically spoke about was the crisis that we have in Maryland with men and boys. And he didn't make it very serious. He didn't make it very specific to Black men and boys. I think it's across the board. Yeah. But I know he is focused on improving the lives and the possibilities and the opportunities and the projection of the trajectory of Black boys and men in this state, because we really do have an issue of a lack of courage, a lack of leadership, and a lack of consciousness in my cohort. So this is important that we talk about the successes, the struggles, the failures, the successes, but mostly the successes of Black men in Baltimore and across the world. So thank you, Queen, for making this space, right? We got to, it's very important to ground spaces. And you are somebody that stands in that gap to make sure that you're creating a space of abundance for Black people. And so I'm truly grateful for you thinking of me to be a part of this series.
Oh, I say ashe.
Ashe to that. Ashe.
Yes.
Malcolm, I am
Malcolm. Who's no Malcolm?
Named after the Malcolm, right?
Yes.
The one and only.
The one and only.
My mother named me after Malcolm X. She was one of his disciples. And I like to quote him in one of the lesser known Malcolm X quotes. It's really short. When people ask me who do I say that I am? And Malcolm X once said, I consider myself Malcolm. That's it. I am a Renaissance man, and my origins come from the lower Park Heights community. Ooh. So I grew up, was born in Sinai Hospital. Really? And was born in Sinai, and I grew up on the 2500 block of Keyworth Avenue, which is about a block east of Park Heights Avenue, and about 3 blocks west of Green Spring. So I grew up just about.
You're really in Park Heights.
I grew up about 3/4 of a mile.
You're coming back. Don't worry, guys.
From Park Circle, where. Park Heights is my birthright, and so it's fitting that now I serve the upper half of Park Heights, from Virginia Avenue up to the county line.
Really,
is part of the district that I serve, and so I'm very, very pointed about the work that I do in Park Heights, the people that I am connected to that do community work, like Yolanda Jiggets, like Pam Curtis, to make sure that I am fully abreast of the pulse of what's going on, like Minerva Eaton and Hilltop, to make sure that I'm with the people like Yashia Israel, Sister Israel, with the Pimlico Merchants Association.
You dropping the names. I see you.
Oh, absolutely, because my people are me, right? I'd be nothing without the people. But I live and breathe Park Heights. It is a part of my being, is a part of my makeup, is a part of my essence. I can remember growing up in Park Heights and being able to play outside with everybody, learning to ride a bike on Cottage Avenue and playing behind the Delta Center as a young boy, playing throw up tackle football with the boys in the neighborhood on the field in between MLK Elementary and the Delta Center. And my mother was a Delta, so she would be in her Delta meetings while I'd be out back.
Really?
Yeah, man. You know, I had a really awesome upbringing. Even though I was raised by a single mother, my father was a musician. He was bad too, and if he didn't give me anything else, he gave me a little bit of that musical ability. So I've been singing since I started singing at my church when I was 4 years old.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm coming for your voice. I'm coming for that.
We ain't doing that on the live stream.
You gotta give us a jewel at the end. You gotta give us 2 lines or something now. Come on.
We'll see. We'll see how the interview goes. But I've attended and been a member of Heritage United Church of Christ on Liberty Heights, just inside of Hilton Street, since I was born. I was christened in that church at 6 months old by Wendell Harrison Phillips, who, if you don't know, was a delegate for the 41st District.
Listen to the pedigree. I love it.
Yeah, I lived in the legacy of being a 3rd generation delegate from my church, because not only was Pastor Wendell Phillips a delegate in the 41st District, but unfortunately we laid to rest his son, Wendell F. Phillips, who was my big brother in the church. He was probably in his early 20s, late teens when I was a little boy. And he also followed his father's footsteps in representing the 41st District here in Annapolis. And if I didn't mention it before, I'm here in the House of Delegates in Annapolis because, as you mentioned earlier, it is snowing. So I didn't make the trek back to Baltimore tonight. I'm actually in Annapolis, and it's coming down out here. But I'm sitting in the Baltimore City Delegation office suite, where I'm sure past Reverend Phillips and Wendell Phillips, we used to call him Pooh, walked the halls and fought the fights for the fighting 41st District for many years. I can still remember being at Wendell Phillips's funeral as an 8 or 9 year old kid at my church, and knowing what a significant impact his life made and what that influence did to me growing up in my church, a church that was birthed out of social action by people not only like Reverend Phillips, but Dr. Ann Emery, who was the principal at Walbrook High School, senior high school, for many years, and served on the Baltimore City School Board, and was just somebody who would reach out and tell you what you were going to do. Like when she told me, voluntold me to be the chairman of our church's trustee board as I was in law school.
And you can't say no.
You can't say no to that. So I just had so many people touching my life, so many strong, powerful Black people. I'll go back to my mother, Martha Roberta Ruff, a woman that grew up on Massachusetts Avenue at the bottom of Hilton Street before it becomes Caton Avenue. And she grew up with 4 brothers and a strong mother, my grandmother, who at this very moment is in the house with my mother at 102 years old.
What?
Born in 1922, was a nurse for many years, and she's been retired since I was born. Since 1984. So my mother went to Forest Park High School, and she became immersed in Black history and Black culture and Afrocentrism. She studied French. She, as a young Black woman coming out of Baltimore City, was one of the only women to go to Middlebury College in Vermont.
Okay.
Studied French as her major, and knew she wanted to go into the library sciences. Ultimately ended up going to graduate school at the University of Chicago, which, you know, it was not common back in the 70s. You know, this powerful dark-skinned Black woman with a big afro moving in these spaces. And
Yes.
as soon as she was done, well, excuse me, I want to say in between undergraduate school and graduate school, my mother decided to serve for 2 years in the Peace Corps. And so she did 2 years in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, and taught English to young West Africa.
West
Taught
totally.
English.
Yes,
Yep.
West
So
Africa.
Ivory Coast. She
Wow.
taught English to a bunch of students, 2 of whom she got very close to, and for decades stayed in contact with. So much so that she would have me and my younger brother writing letters to them.
Wow.
The Tigari family in Abidjan. And ultimately, when I graduated from high school, my graduation gift was a 3-week trip to West Africa. And not only did we go to Senegal and to the capital city of Dakar, and got to see the door of no return on Glory Island, right? Such an emotional experience of watching the waves lap up onto the shore where my ancestors lost their entire existence. But then also going back to the mainland and walking through the door of return, which is an archway that they created for brothers and sisters like us coming from the United States to greet us and say, you're back in your homeland. Welcome home from this, cross Atlantic journey that has taken centuries for you to return. So my mother not only got immersed in African culture when she was in Africa, but when she returned, she became immersed in the art and tradition of African folklore and the tradition of the griot. And in Swahili, the word griot means storyteller. So my mother has been telling African folklore and African American stories since the late 70s, maybe early 80s. She is a member of the Griot Circle of Maryland, has been a past president, is an acolyte of the incomparable Mother Mary Carter Smith, who was the griot of the city of Baltimore. I spent many a Saturday morning at 88.9 WEAA at Morgan State University in the studio as a growing griot. And I was able to even tell stories with my mother and with Mama Mary as a child. And so it is something that is intrinsic to my being. African culture, African folklore, the African American experience is something that is a part of my makeup, right? My mother made sure that I saw the struggle of Black people, even though I grew up in the late 80s and early 90s. I was immersed in the works of Marcus Garvey and Medgar Evers and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. So that's really the primordial soup that I was birthed out of, was my mother's deep, entrenched, investment in the history and culture of our people. Which
what a rich history of
it's really wild though, because it was juxtaposed with her knowing that I needed to have a exceptional education. And so she looked around. Say that again.
I said with that too, she understood that you had to be immersed in African culture and being a part of the diaspora, but you also had to speak things English and beat to that drum too. That's that mom is she's a forward thinker. Let's go.
My mother is way beyond her years. So she decided, because my uncles, well, let's put it this way. I'll start here. One of our cousins in our family, his name is William Green. And he was the first Black faculty member at the Gilman School in North Baltimore. Prestigious, very exclusive prep school in Baltimore City. And because of his relationship to our family, and because my mother had 3 brothers, by the time he got into school, 2 of them were still of age to go to Gilman. And he was able to get them to be some of the first African-American students to go to Gilman. So my uncle William Ruff was in the 3rd class of African-American students to go to Gilman. He graduated in 1971. My uncle Stanley Ruff was in the class of 1978. And they both went on to do amazing things. They now live out of state. But my mother saw what that did for them.
Yes.
And she said in her mind, I'm going to make sure my child, my boy child, gets the same experience. And so when she knew I was coming, she decided to get employed by the Gilman School.
Like undeniable, my child is going to the Gilman
School. My child is going to this school.
Wow.
She became the first Black librarian at the Gilman School. So she was the librarian of the elementary school. So she was able to touch and feel me every day, and to make sure
controls the knowledge. I tell you, wow.
I was 2 years old when she started there. She got me in to the Gilman School in 1st grade. I went there from 1st grade all the way through high school.
1 through 12.
Correct. And I can tell you, that's 1990 is when I walked through the doors of Gilman School. And of course, there have been 30 years of Black students at Gilman at that point, but that's still, 30 years ain't nothing, right? Before 1963 or 4, there had never been a Black student at the school.
We're talking about the school. How long? This is an old school. This is not a young school.
1897.
Listen to this. This is historic. Wow.
1897. And the history of the school is that it was named after the one of the original presidents of Johns Hopkins University, Daniel Coit Gilman, who, while he was a brilliant man and inspired a institution that has, created leaders, we still have less than 10,000 alumni from the school after being in existence for over 125 years.
Very exclusive.
Very exclusive. Created leaders across the board, including young man Thomas Booker, who happened to be a part of the Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl this past Sunday. Shout out to my man Tommy Booker and his family, his mother Ava and his father Tom. Amazing. But Daniel Coit Gilman, as bright and intelligent as he was also a eugenicist, right? He was somebody who said Black people are only meant for menial employment and menial career paths, and are only able to do work with their hands and work that is the type of work that we think of as not cerebral.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So to have a school that's founded out of, the progeny of a person like Daniel Coit Gilman, who had a bunch of wonderful things to offer, but also that piece of his ideology, right?
Yes. You said he was a former president of Hopkins?
He was the president of Johns Hopkins University back in the late 1800s.
Yes. Johns Hopkins wasn't a lover of Black people neither, so let's be clear. So
that's a whole nother story, right? We had to talk to my brother Ben Crump, who is representing the family of Henrietta Lacks, about that.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Absolutely. So my mother, she got me into Gilman. It was one of the best things that ever happened. She decided after I finished second grade that she had enough. So she left me there, and she became the one of the librarians at the Henry Moon Library at the headquarters of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Right.
Hey,
So she
she
went
made a
right
good
back.
move. That's a
Yeah,
good,
she
beautiful
went right
move.
back to doing to
BLaK.
being and living in her purpose. But her number one purpose was to see me be successful, and I'm just proud to be able to say that I believe I'm making my mom proud and living in the legacies that she wanted me to follow in. I can
Beautiful.
still remember in seventh grade, we were standing in front of Gilman School, and one of my teachers, who was also one of my football coaches, I had just started playing interscholastic football, and he was raving to her about how good of a player I was, and he thought
Oh, she like,
I
nope.
was gonna go to the NFL. And
No,
you're
sir.
absolutely right. She said, "No, this boy is
A
going
black
to
woman ain't
law
going for
school
that.
at
Yeah.
Yale University." I didn't go to Yale, right?
But you went to law school.
I did go to Duke for undergrad, so the other four-letter school. Uh, but I did go to law school and have become an attorney. I've now been practicing law for 12 and a half years. And it's just unbelievable to look back at the types of fights that I've been able to be involved in on behalf of Black people on so many different levels.
Where'd you go to law school? Where'd you go to law school?
I went to the University of Baltimore. I came back home after
Oh,
going to Duke. Yep. I pledged Phi Beta Sigma. So shout
okay.
out to all my brothers of
Shout out to
Sigma,
Sigmas. Okay.
especially the Zeta Sigma chapter. I'm a member of our grad chapter here in Baltimore, the largest Sigma chapter on the planet, over
Really?
300 strong. But I was brought into the fraternity at the Alpha Alpha Chi chapter. My brother's at Duke University. I was a full scholarship athlete at Duke, so I didn't have to worry about the finance piece. I had a full
Yes.
ride. I studied, of course, African and African American studies at Duke under folks like Charles Payne, who was there at the very beginning of the founding of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And Mark Anthony Neal, the author of The New Black Man, who now I believe is the head of that department. And I soaked it all in, and it has. And I also did some public policy work there under William Raspberry, who you remember used to write for the Washington Post. So that was all a part of the the equation that
Your ecosystem is
resulted
rich.
in me being here today.
Yeah, your ecosystem is popping, bruh. And you had no choice to be great. I want to say that to you.
Absolutely.
Your ecosystem is really, and that's what we need to do. We have to find a way to have that sweet spot. We need to know about us, love us, and have empathy for our community. But we also have to be able to move in spaces so we can challenge and help our community. And so you looks like you have both places. And University of Baltimore, I think they've seated the most Black judges in Maryland. I think.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, the most Black
I
judges.
couldn't call that stat off the top of my head, but I would not be surprised. The
I
University of
moved the
Baltimore
stats.
really, as you compare it to the University of Maryland, what it typically is said is that Maryland is more of a theoretical law practice school that sends folks off into the rest of the country to practice, whereas University of Baltimore is more practical application, trial skills.
Yep.
That's what I used it for. I was in the trial advocacy fellowship. I learned the art of turning storytelling into legal advocacy at University of Baltimore. And I had some really transformative professors there, of course. Jose Anderson, who has argued at every level of courts throughout this country, is one of my biggest mentors in the law. F. Michael Higginbotham, who ran for Congress in the last go around. I worked with him on his Race in the Law treatise after my second year of law school. And then, you know, not just Black folk. You got guys like Byron Warnken, who wrote the book on criminal procedure in the state of Maryland, was the guy who got me my first job in the legal field, which is a really funny exchange. Actually, I was working for Professor Higginbotham that summer, and I get a call from Professor Warnken, and he was a real gruffy, real thin, short white guy, and he had this really gruffy voice. So he called me, and he asked me, he said, Malcolm, he said, do you have a job lined up for next year? And I said, no, Professor, I don't have a job yet. I had worked the previous year for the NAACP legal office of the legal counsel, but that summer I was simply editing Professor Higginbotham's book. He said, well, Malcolm, you're gonna apply to be a law clerk in the Baltimore County State's Attorney's Office because Scott Schellenberger needs Black people.
Oh my Lord. Really? He said it like that.
And just like that. I'll never forget it. And I said, okay, where do I, you know, I'll follow your advice. I applied. I was blessed enough to be hired, and I became, eventually, after 2 years of serving as a law clerk and finishing my law degree, I started learning the criminal justice system from the inside as an assistant state's attorney in Baltimore County for about a year. And then I transitioned into the city to try and learn a new jurisdiction. And I did that for about half a year. And then I went out into the private sector as a criminal defense lawyer, working with some of my closest colleagues from law school who had started their own law firm. My really close brother, his name is Andrew Saller, and he still is running that law firm to this day. Such a great, savvy businessman, and one of the best trial lawyers you would never expect, because he's a big son of a gun. He played offensive line at Towson University. So you look at him and you never want to read that book by its cover because he's been practicing longer than me, and he is truly the consummate trial lawyer. And he gave me my start in private practice.
Oh, very interesting. So, man, so you're a Park Heights kid who went to Gilman from 1 to 12. You know, I think I've interviewed from the janitor to the mayor. I've never interviewed someone who went to Gilman. So you're the first. Yeah, a Black person. Yeah, you're the first. I think I've had a friends. I've had, but not Gilman. So that you're the first, and from 1 to 12, that's pretty impressive. People don't know how exclusive the school is and how beautiful the school is, how historical the school is. Being in Baltimore is like a whole, it's almost like a campus. It's a campus, trust me.
It's a campus. It's like sits on 16 or 17 acres.
Yes, in a city. And so that should tell you right there, and from the pedigree and the years it's been there and what it's produced. So that means something. And then to go on to Duke, you went to North Carolina. That's probably where you got a little introduction to that 211 that you told me about.
Absolutely. That's right on point.
Yeah, I know you got that 211 that's still reserved.
Look, man, college is college, right?
College is college.
Life is meant to be lived in college.
You better know.
I certainly had my time in college. While it set me on my way, I made sure to enjoy myself while I was there. Me and my frat brothers. Trust and believe. I know you did.
And folks wonder why we laughing, but that's a fun fact between me and Malcolm, because I said, Malcolm, you're going to come with me on 211. And he said, isn't that beer? And that's still
that's still reserved.
You know?
Wild part is I didn't learn that in Park Heights.
I couldn't believe it. He said, "Yeah, I know that's my date, 2/11." And I never
2/11. We were
did that.
right. We're gonna be on 2/11. Oh my
2/11.
goodness.
Boy, that was
Got me
funny.
in here crying.
So yeah, you went to Duke, and then you came back home to University of Baltimore, and then you practiced private, and so you was with the great Billy Murphy.
Well, so that was what happened after I practiced for a couple years with my buddy
Okay.
Andrew.
Okay.
Um, it's a really it was really my whole life has been serendipitous, right?
Ooh.
Just like you said, it's like I had no choice but to thrive. I had no choice but to take on the responsibility of to whom much is given, much is expected. So the way that it turned out that I ended up going to the Murphy firm, I had, everybody knows Billy Murphy. I had known Billy's name from when I was a kid, right? And from the moment my mom put the idea of being a lawyer in my head, he was one of the first images of a lawyer that I ever knew of, right? I can remember being at the end of my first semester of law school. So this is 2008. And I didn't have a lot of confidence that I was going to be successful in law school. I was not a great student in college. I had a lot of struggles because of the schedule of being a full-time athlete. So I barely kept my GPA at a 3.0, and I wasn't proud of that, but it was enough to get me through and to be successful. And I did win some accolades as I finished college, but I had a lot of doubts about getting through law school.
Got it.
And at the end of my first semester of law school, I took my first round of exams. And law school is way different than college, than high school, where you're accumulating grades along the way in high school. You're accumulating grades along the way in the semester in college. You don't accumulate grades in law school.
Really?
You get lectured to the whole semester. You're expected to learn everything. You're expected to grasp all the concepts. And then you get a test. And your test is your grade for that semester.
Whoa.
Right? That's the pressure of law school. That's why people talk about people ripping out pages in the law school treatises in the library, because they wanted to get an advantage over other folks, right? Because that law school ranking converts into your job opportunities as a lawyer.
Really?
Absolutely.
Wow.
It can be dog eat dog. Now everything's digital, so you can't really do that.
You can't do that.
It was harrowing to me to think that my entire grade for the semester was going to come down to these 4 tests I had to take. And so I took the tests, and I'll never forget after the end of the last test, my car got towed as I was leaving the law school building. Right. I never got that car back either, because I was broke. I was a broke law student. I couldn't even go get it out the tow lot. I was so broke. I was so broke. So I was depressed. I thought I had bombed at least 2 of those exams and that I was going to get kicked out of law school. And I was living, and during the first semester of law school, you never guess, I was living on Lafayette Square. I was born in Park Heights. Couldn't find anywhere to live to come back to school. The only place I could find that would take me with having no credit, because I never had a credit card or anything, right? I was a young boy, 25 years old, 24 years old, coming out of North Carolina, was a second-story apartment, back apartment on Lafayette Square, right on Arlington and Lafayette.
Well, the churches are.
Churches are right there in the middle of the square.
Wow.
And so I went to my apartment and I locked myself in my apartment. I turned off all the lights, and I literally sat in that apartment for an entire week by myself in the dark. And the only thing I did was watch The Wire. I had never watched The Wire at that point. I think The Wire came out in like 04, 03. I had never watched it.
Wow. So, I still haven't seen it. I still haven't seen The Wire.
So
Yes.
to kind of avoid my depression and
Wow.
my impending doom, thinking that I had failed out of law school, I watched The Wire from cover to cover. Literally, I just watched episode after episode after episode. I watched the entire series.
You binged.
And so the reason why I bring it up is because in the 5th season of The Wire, we come across a situation where Senator Clay Davis from the West Side is facing a ridiculous indictment in criminal court in the Baltimore City Circuit Court. And guess who his lawyer was? Billy Murphy. Billy Murphy playing himself in The Wire.
What? I love it.
And so I'm sitting there myself thinking I'm about to fail out of law school, watching Billy Murphy do his silver tongue on the big screen, and thinking to myself, man, you know, that could be me if I can just get through this. Fast forward to after a couple of years of practicing under my former firm, doing some great work, you know, getting some cases where I've gotten pounds and pounds of illegally seized narcotics suppressed in a criminal jury trial, beating an attempted murder case for one of my church mother's grandsons who was wrongfully accused of killing a pizza delivery man, winning a big family law case where a year long of litigation results in my client getting the exact outcome that he wanted for his child so that she could go on to study marine biology because her mother was being overzealous. All kinds of outcomes. And throughout those times, I would run into Billy Murphy at the Baltimore County Circuit Courthouse, at the Baltimore City Circuit Courthouse, at certain events all around. And every time I would see him, I would grab his coattail and try and talk to him just to, you know, tell him what I was up to and hear what he was up to and to just pick his brain. And all of that culminated in an incident where I was actually trying to get another job. I was ready to move on from my prior firm, and I knew he had a connection to that other job. The place where I was trying to work, he was connected to that place very tightly.
So you didn't even want to work with him. You wanted to work at another place.
The aim was not at his firm. I just wanted to get him to help me get to this other place. So I ended up in a space where I was able to talk to him with my managing partner, who is his son, Hassan Murphy. Wow. And he put me on the phone with Billy because I'm like, I need Billy to back me on this other job opportunity. Can you put me on the phone with him? He said, okay, there's nothing. And actually the funny part is the reason why we were meeting was because there had been some racist incidents involving private school kids, including Gilman kids. And it was a group of Gilman alums who got together at the Murphy firm to talk about what we were going to do to compel Gilman to ensure they did the right thing in response to this. This is when the young white kids put on the bodysuit, the prison suit, and had Freddie Gray on the back.
Yeah.
So we all got together and we sat there and we figured out what we were going to do as alums of the school to make sure they did the right thing. Well, at the end of that meeting, I asked Hassan, can you please put me on the phone with Billy so that he can put the good word in for me for this other job that I wanted to get. So he brings me to a conference room across from the boardroom where we're at. And he puts me on the phone with Billy. And the first thing he says is, run your resume. So I'm just in there rattling off the same things I'm talking to you about, the trials that I've been through, the work I had put in. And they're just listening. And then all of a sudden, Hassan speaks up before Billy can say anything. And he goes, now I'm paraphrasing. He says, well, Negro, why don't you just come work for us?
Real talk. That's a real talk.
That's how it happened.
What?
That's really how it happened. We went through the onboarding process from there. But that is literally how I ended up living it in my ultimate purpose at the ultimate place where I was supposed to be. Is God just...
So you never even thought about the other firm or where you wanted to
I
go?
didn't think I was in that category, right? The Murphy firm has done, at that point, they had already settled the Freddie Gray case. They had,
Oh,
done millions of dollars in the H&R Block cases.
exactly.
Billy,
Billy's been
the
everywhere.
legacy of the firm was of high level, complex litigation. And I had never
Yeah.
done any of that at that
Yeah,
point,
he's an
right?
institution in Baltimore, guys. Billy
Correct.
Murphy
I
is
had never done any of that stuff. So my thought process was not even on the idea of I could be a member of the Murphy firm. And today I sit here 7 years in, having litigated some of the most high-level civil rights cases in the country. In 2020, we settled the largest civil rights police brutality case in the country, that prior to George Floyd. Absolutely. The family of William H. Green, who was affectionately known as Boo Boo, who lived in Prince George's County and was killed by Prince George's County officer Michael Owen while he sat handcuffed right next to him in a locked squad car, hands cuffed behind his back, was shot six times in the torso and killed by this officer, a Black officer. We ran that case down in 9 months and did a comprehensive investigation that I led into the history of police brutality in Prince George's County. And what we found was a decades-long history of just a culture of condemnation of police brutality and misconduct against Black and brown people of all shades, that we believed was the cause of the actual incident that happened with this individual officer. And so when we presented all of that to the county, on top of just the heinous nature of what happened to William Boo Boo Green, we were able to have the county come to the table. I will give all props to their leader at the time, who is now our federal senator, Angela Alsop-Brooks, who decided that it was better to decide to create a agreement, a settlement of that case, and instead of taking it to court. And we settled that case for $20 million. Because that was at the time the largest amount that had ever been offered to settle a police brutality case in the entire country.
That means you had insurmountable evidence, because they don't offer Black people 20 million. Let me tell you guys, no. So that means you had insurmountable evidence that they just could not walk away from. That's just it.
After that, the next highest one obviously was our brother George Floyd. And that case settled for $27 million. But that was not very long. George Floyd's case happened 4 months after Boo Boo's case. 2020 was a hell of a year for Black people.
It's a hell of a year. Yeah. Well, every year is. It's just some of them get the media attention, unfortunately. This is not in our community. But when this is happening, it does not come to the 20 million movement. It's usually 3 to 5 million, or within those ranks. But when you see 20 million, then they can't walk away.
Yeah. And what's so crazy is that we also, when we were investigating the department, we also investigated this officer. And so we found multiple people, 9 or 10 people who had brothers and sisters in Baltimore locked up. Yeah, I get it. They need you, bro. Hotel California. I've been fighting for the people for a long time, so please don't hesitate to reach out. We looked into these 9 or 10 folks that he had abused in his 10-year career, and we talked to most of them directly, who they were still around and they still remembered and still had all kinds of emotional damages from that. Now, there's a thing called the statute of limitations in this country. And so all of them we could not represent. But there were folks from the 3 years prior that we contacted. They hired us. And we went after that officer for their cases. A young man who he had pulled over and strangled on the side of the road. A young man who he had pointed a gun at and shot a warning shot next to his head. A young man who he had tackled from behind out of nowhere for no reason and had caused all kinds of back issues to this young man. And then a family of folks who were trying to fix a broke down car in a 7-Eleven parking lot, and a incident had come by that they weren't involved in. But because this officer was so overzealous, he just detained everybody on the scene. And when my client spoke up, he ended up choking this guy and slamming him up against a car and locking him up for no reason. And we ended up taking that group of plaintiffs, and together we brought another lawsuit and we settled that case for another $1.5 million. Because of the nature of the evidence.
Egregious behavior, just ridiculous.
Egregious, and it's from the top down, right? You got a guy, and we found all this. I had to do a Public Information Act request to the Workers' Comp Commission to find this out.
The information.
Oh yeah. And if y'all want to know, you want to hit me up, I have the ultimate template for Public Information Act requests. So this is a resource I'm offering to the people right now.
Y'all hear that?
Real live stuff, like trying to get public information. While it seems like an easy task, they're not just giving it up, right? So you have to come correct and know the law. So I will offer that. If you want to hit me up, I'm Brother Malcolm. You find out, hit me up, type my name in Google, you'll be able to get in contact with me. And if you request my template on Public Information Act requests in Maryland, I will provide that to you as a community resource. But what we found out was this thing happened in 2020. He started as an officer in 2010. He had been diagnosed by a police department psychiatrist with PTSD from a shooting that he had been involved in the first year of his service. Right.
And they continue to allow him to
and they let him stay on the street. Right.
But who is he policing? Black people. It don't matter.
Black people. And every single one of the victims that we found in his past was a person of color. But luckily,
has a large Black population, one of the largest,
and a terrible history of police brutality, like going back to the 60s, where we found out that there were known reports in the Washington Post in the 60s of people that they believed to have been police officers, but also part of the Ku Klux Klan, where they had what was called death squads. They literally called them death squads because what they would do was they would send a confidential informant to convince a young brother to stick up a liquor store or stick up a convenience store. And they would be lying in wait as the brother who was finally duped into doing this would try and do this, and they would arrest them right away, right? But sometimes it turned into an actual struggle, and they ended up killing people after having set them up on an entrapment type of situation. So I could talk about that. I could talk about this all day. I actually have a matter that is still pending in the series of civil rights cases that we brought against Prince George's County. That was just one. That was just that unit of cases. We also represented the family of DeMonte Ward Blake, who was slammed on his face by a Prince George's County police officer who also had a checkered past, paralyzed from breaking his C4, C5, and C6 vertebrae, paralyzed for the rest of his life, all over expired tag and an argument over why he was being stopped. And that young brother unfortunately passed away way too soon. And I just, one of the things that just gnaws at my spirit, because I wish he had been able to see the day when we settled his lawsuit for $7.5 million.
Wait a minute, he wasn't there for the settlement. He died before.
He passed away before, and it actually was one of the reasons why his case settled for a lower amount than we would have liked it to, or thought that it was worth, because he was gone. But for 19 months after that, he lived, and I watched him struggle through life being in a motorized scooter, after having been a 25-year-old, gregarious, handsome, full of swagger young man who, was respected by so many people in the Prince George's County and Southeast DC area. It's just senseless that to be treated so barbarically. Yeah, he was treated like less than a human being, and he lost his life because of it. And then I have a case right now where the police broke into my client's house without a warrant over allegations of a dog bite. Somebody said that my client's dog bit them. Not a crime.
So you break into their house over
We
dog.
broke into their house to find the dogs. They found the people, started brutalizing the people, throwing these young women around their own apartment, pointing guns at them and tasers at them. And then, of course, the dog hears the commotion, comes out of the bedroom, not attacking anybody, not running at anybody. They killed the dog, shot it in the back, traumatized these 4 young Hispanic people, and then arrested them, put them in the squad cars for about an hour. And then they looked at each other and said, well, what are we going to charge them with?
Because we broke into their house.
What are we going to charge them with? What crime did they commit? Oh, wait, they didn't commit any crime. So I guess we got to let them go. And so after all that, terrorizing my clients for a few hours, I ain't killing their dog. They just let them go and acted like nothing had happened. These officers are still employed with the Prince George's County Police Department. Still employed after violating, not just violating, like just ignoring the 4th Amendment of the Constitution.
This police thing, Malcolm, I don't know what's going to happen in this country, but they said that we can fix the police, but it needs to be started. It's ridiculous.
Look at Kwame. One day,
Kwame,
I got some more experiences to have before I write my book. Especially now
your
that
book
I'm in
is
the legislature. I know we got to get to the legislature, right? We haven't even talked about that yet.
Yeah, I know, but it's intriguing to hear, because we never hardly hear from the attorney. We hear from the people. We never hear, how it comes through the actual lawyer and to kind of talk about the backstory. Like they had PG County has a history of this foolishness, which we know, but to really hear it, it's captivating. Right? I'm at the end of my seat. But yeah, let's get to the legislator. So we know you're a criminal. Not criminal, you're a civil rights attorney, practicing. And now what says, okay, listen, I need to start framing some policy. I need to get in the state house. So how did that happen?
Yeah. So I've always in my mind knew I was going to be in leadership civically, right? I had always thought about, could I serve on the city council? I remember when I was growing up, I was a part of the James Mosher Little League as a Little League baseball player right down in Southwest Baltimore. My grandmother and her sister used to live around the corner on Aruna Avenue. So I would go down and play. I played for the James Mosher Mets with my coach Charles Hughes and Coach Meacham. Coach Meacham put me at first base, and he would tell me every day, you play for the same team, for the same coach, at the same position as Kurt Schmoke. So, and that was true. Kurt Schmoke played for my team, for my coach, my position.
Wow.
Years before I did when at James Mosher. So I looked up to people like Kurt Schmoke. I looked up to people like Kwesi Mfume, who, I used to read his book as a middle schooler, No Free Ride. And now I get to be his colleague in this work, which is something that I, revel in every day. I also looked up to people like Ben Carson, right? Because I used to read his book, Gifted Hands. So it can go both ways, because that man is
just, you should stay right there.
He's in the sunken place.
Just stay in Gifted Hands.
Right. So I always thought about leadership. One of the best lessons I learned came from my high school football coach. His name was Biff Poggi. and is Biff Poggi. He's a transformative figure, somebody I consider one of my dads, and he's done amazing things in athletics, but also changing the culture of athletics to be a culture of uplift and love, as opposed to the toxic masculinity that sports has been. And one of the things that we talked about, we often talked about scripture, we often talked about spirituality, we often talked about how you show love, care, and respect for your community. And so the foundational principle that we built our football program off of was Isaiah 1:17. And it's a very simple verse, and it says, learn to do right, seek justice, take up the cause of the oppressed, defend the fatherless, and plead the case of the widow. And that is a foundational principle that I have tried to operate from my entire life. So it wasn't enough for me to just be trying to make a living on fighting the fight for Black people. It also has to be about me trying to prevent the ills that cause our strife. But also, just like I said, my life has always been serendipitous. It wasn't something that I said, okay, now is the time.
Yes. Okay.
Right. Often for me, it has just been about answering the call. And so my wife, Sydney Wilson Ruff, my love, my light, I said this the other day, I got honored by the AKAs. She's my confidant. She is my manager. She is my everything.
Shout out to Sydney.
Keep me straight.
Shout out to Sydney. I love it.
It's also, just bad. Right?
Back to the bone.
So my wife, she was in a program that was a pipeline to service on a board for nonprofits. And she ended up choosing serving on the board of Blue Water Baltimore. Blue Water Baltimore, as you know, is one of the premier environmental advocacy groups in Baltimore, dealing with water safety, water health, and with environmental equity, right? And making sure that our watershed is protected and cleansed, right? She was one of the only people, when they said that you could swim in the harbor, to say, no, don't do that. But,
let me ask you a question. Are they over what happens with putting all the water, like from the parks under, taking the water, like from Druid Hill Park and covering the water? Is that Blue Water? Is that something they would be a part of?
I'm sure they're studying it, and that if they feel like it is not being done appropriately, they're going to speak up. They filed numerous lawsuits against the city and have been successful, especially on the Back River water treatment plant. They got that completely reformed. But my point is, she was on that board. At the time she joined the board, the executive director was my man, Tony Bridges, who at the time was one of the delegates in the 41st district.
Oh my Lord.
So his day job was the executive director of Blue Water, and he also was a delegate for the district. He had been the chief of staff to the director of the MTA before that. And so he was in the transportation realm already. And when the new administration came in under our governor, they decided to try and recoup him as a resource in the Department of Transportation as a deputy secretary for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So he decided he would take that opportunity, and he stepped down. And so when he decided to step down, he came to me because he knew me through my wife, Sydney, working with him on the board at Blue Water. And he knew that we lived in the district. And he said, I want you to try and replace me. And I thought it was, time to answer that call. Obviously, this opportunity was given to me for a very, very good reason. And I did step up and put my hat in the ring to be appointed in his place. And the funny part is, he also had to step down from being the executive director of Blue Water Baltimore, because you can't serve, you can't be a part of the executive branch and work at a nonprofit. And
Absolutely.
so while I was lucky enough to be successfully appointed in his position as one of the delegates for the 41st district, it was a 4-4 tie, which then took that to the governor to be the tie-breaking vote. And the governor, who had been coming to me and my wife's Juneteenth celebration that we were holding every year at my house on my back porch, came to the Juneteenth celebration and appointed me on my back porch. It was in the Baltimore Banner the next day. You can go look it up.
Relationships matter. I tell you, relationships.
Amazing
Wow.
afternoon that ever happened. But my wife then replaced Tony as the executive director of Blue Water Baltimore. So,
oh my God, the Ruffs are taking over, baby.
Right, we collectively now are Tony Bridges.
In one person, isn't that something?
In one person. So that's how I got to this. That's why I get to sit here in Suite 314, the Baltimore City Delegation office here in Annapolis, fighting the good fight, trying to make sure that all the needs of the people of North, Northwest, West, and Southwest Baltimore are heard and addressed, especially on two fronts that I can talk about as far as last session is concerned. But as you know, we sit in Annapolis for the legislative session every January through the very beginning of April. So that's why I'm here now. I sit on the Appropriations Committee, which is
very powerful committee,
sometimes known as the Money Team.
That's the money team.
Yes, we are. So we deal with the state budget and working to balance it and approve it to a place where we are equitably distributing the state's resources. I can proudly say that the 41st district team brought back to the 41st district about $2.7 million worth of state resources and local bond initiatives last year and line items in the budget. But also, one of the major things that we did last year was to pass the Pimlico redevelopment bill. And as you know, Pimlico Racetrack is a huge anchor institution in the 41st district, has been running the Preakness Stakes, one of the three jewels of the Triple Crown, for 150 years this year. So shameless plug for Preakness 150, which is being chaired by the First Lady of Maryland, Dawn Moore. She is the chair of the Preakness 150 Festival, which is the first ever that we're trying to kind of replicate the culture that is established at the Kentucky Derby, which will be a week long of celebrations and events that will highlight all the wonderful things about Maryland and Park Heights and the Pimlico neighborhood as we lead into the 150th running of the Preakness. But the bill will then cause, within a month after the 150th Preakness, for the entire raising of the clubhouse and an entire redevelopment of Pimlico Racetrack to be a state-of-the-art racing facility for thoroughbred racing in Maryland. And what that takes is a bond appropriation of $400 million. That will be infused, about 250 of it to recreate the track, and 100 million of that to create the training facility, and the other 50 to do odd and ends, miscellaneous things. But when that bill hit the House floor last year, when I read through it, how much money do you think was in it for the community?
I wonder. Zero.
Take a guess. You are right.
Zero.
Absolutely. It was none in it.
None of it.
None in it. And so this is a bill that was literally over 10 years
around this community is BLaK. Just to be clear, folks, around Pimlico
That's
Racetrack,
true.
very Black. We
To
got
the
the Jews
west,
left.
the west, and the south of the track is all Black. But don't forget that to the north of the track is a Jewish community.
Jewish community, and then also if you kind of move up towards like Whole Foods and all that area, that's pretty affluent and white too. But
Correct.
right around the track is all Black. It is Black.
Right. We have one of the most diverse jurisdictions in the entire state, legislative jurisdictions, but certainly is very depressed in the Central Park Heights area. A lot of vacant housing, a lot of rundown housing. If you look at where Sister Israel's community association, the Pimlico Merchants, sit, the facades need renewal. There needs to be new lighting. There needs to be new investment into that business district because it's not a place that's inviting, right? You got liquor store, convenience store, smoke shop, and you got Harbor Bank, which
it's been sitting there forever.
Thank God for Harbor Bank to be kind of the anchor on that block. But there needs to be more
revitalization. Yeah,
right.
It needs revitalization.
So my brother, Senator Antonio Hayes, who is one of my mentors in the legislature, went to work and said, you need to get to work too. And so he worked on an amendment that required the Racetrack Operating Authority to agree that they would give 10% of all profits from Maryland thoroughbred horse racing to the community.
Love it.
An unprecedented piece of this legislation.
This is some money coming over here. It's some money coming in the 10%.
Any profit made off the Preakness, off of any thoroughbred horse racing that's going to happen at Pimlico has to go to the neighborhoods around the Pimlico racetrack. And transformative
that's a game changer
of amendment right there.
That's
now,
a game changer. Yes.
When you look at other developments around the city, like for instance the Port Covington redevelopment at the peninsula.
Yes.
What they did there was they said, okay, we need to create a community benefits plan if we're going to infuse all this money to ensure that the areas around it are seeing the gains from this investment.
Mm-hmm.
And so what my amendment did was created a community benefits plan for Park Heights surrounding what happens with the redevelopment so that it is in tandem, so that you're not just investing in the racetrack and leaving everything else the same way, because that's not going to generate sustainability.
That's what's happened for years. So we got to change that movement. It has to be different this time.
So there was a triggering piece of legislation that I put in as an amendment that essentially said you have to create this community benefits plan, and it has to address vacant and blighted housing and how we're going to renovate those things. It has to address commercial revitalization in the business district. It has to address how do we beef up public safety and lighting and surveillance. How do we ensure that people can age in place that are seniors in the area?
Absolutely.
It was an 8-point plan, and don't give me the line about all 8 points right now because I'm not going to recall them all. But it was a comprehensive plan that was based off of the Pimlico Redevelopment Community Compact, and that was established many moons ago under Mayor Jack Young. So I just borrowed the language from that to ensure that now that it was being implemented, that those would be the focal points. And the trigger was, you can't get the $400 million until this plan is established and thoroughly written. So
it has to be established first before you.
It was written. Trust and believe it. They went to work. Right? They went to work.
Oh yeah, well, they want that $400 million, bro. Please, come on.
So we went to work, and it was collaborative. It was folks from all over the Park Heights master plan inputting into this plan, and now we have an entire workbook of projects that surround Pimlico that thankfully the governor's Department of Housing and Community Development, shout out to Jake Day and Chuck Cook for the work that they're doing, are going to be funding incrementally these projects as we go along in tandem with the redevelopment of Pimlico Racetrack. Now, there were people that said to me, you got to withdraw your amendment because you're going to kill this bill. And
Really?
I'm a rookie legislator, right? I never done this before.
So community money will kill a bill. Isn't that terrible? Terrible.
Ain't that terrible? Ain't that terrible? But it was very possible. And so I stood on business, and I said, if the community will be sad if the bill gets killed, they'll be just as sad as if this bill goes through.
That's
and
true.
The only benefits in it are inside the walls of Pimlico Racetrack. And so I stood firm on that. And luckily, the body of the House of Delegates allowed the amendment to go through. And we got this workbook. We got this plan. We have a significant amount of investment that is going to come into the Park Heights community and Park Heights master plan because of conscious legislators who stood in the gap and said, not on my watch will we not make sure that this piece of legislation doesn't permeate throughout our community. So I look forward to watching and shepherding that process over the years, because this is going to take some years. Hopefully Pimlico will reopen.
To look like it is. I mean, it didn't just break down in an area look like it took blighting years. So it's going to take years for it to come back. Did the community, so there's the merchant association, did they have some input into your amendment? So
absolutely.
Okay, so this was community.
The point of the process was to make sure that every neighborhood in Central Park Heights, in the actual master plan, and in the 1 mile radius. So you're talking about the Liberty Wabash corridor. You're talking about Cold Spring, Newtown. You're talking about Falstaff and Glen and Cheswold and Mount Washington and Cross Country. All of these communities were able to weigh in on this Pimlico area work group. And because we have an awesome administration, they were open to it. They have taken these ideas and literally put them into a workbook where we have listed dozens of projects that need to happen from, like I said, community revitalization, housing, workforce development. And I have to shout out, of course, Park Heights Renaissance and Yolanda Jiggets. I already mentioned her earlier, but integral in ensuring that this was shepherded the right way. And also the people at Kai, Lisa Budlow. You got people like Marita Goodman over at Go Northwest that are overseeing and shepherding this process as well. It has to be collaborative, right? It has to be, my brain, is not going to think of all the things. Your brain is not going to think of all the things. True. We have to be able to work together in order to do what's best for the community. And it ain't easy, right? You got a lot of historical hurt over Pimlico and over what some people would call the dividing line on Northern Parkway, right? So we're dealing with, we're dealing with some really deep-seated type of issues that have to be overcome and put to the side for the greater good of the entire area. And I'm proud to say that I think that we are doing that, right? We're doing that community work one day at a time, one meeting at a time, one conversation at a time. And it is the hard work that has to be done, but we got to think about the children that are going to come behind us, right? Elijah Cummings used to say the love letters, we're writing love letters to a future that we will never see.
That's so true.
I think that is incumbent upon us. It is absolutely our duty and our responsibility, which is why, one of the reasons why I look at green spaces as areas where we can really build legacy. For me, that started with my own neighborhood. I live in the West Arlington community, just about 5 minutes from where I grew up, still in the 21215. Just on the other side of the railroad track. So, we done moved on up a little bit, as we should. Since me and my wife, we have 4 children. We needed some space, right? We have 4 beautiful children. And we have just enough space. We got a full house, but it's a beautiful house. But we live right across the street from Pennhurst Park. And when we moved into the neighborhood, I don't think many people really knew Penhurst Park other than the folks that lived in the neighborhood. And it hasn't seen a facelift in probably since I was a kid.
Wow.
So that was one of the first things I started doing before I even got into the legislature, was starting to work with my public officials and recs and parks to start the conversation about completely renovating that park. And that started in 2021. I'm proud to say in about 45 days, there will be a groundbreaking at Penhurst Park, and the entire playground will be replaced. We'll have new landscaping. We already have a new fence around the entire park, and the change is happening, right? The renovation is happening. The renaissance is happening. And I think I expanded that in my first session to include the bill from 2024, House Bill 1358, which was my major piece of legislation. And sometimes as a first year legislator, you don't get any bills passed. But I was blessed enough to have this piece of legislation make it through the House of Delegates and the Senate unanimously. It was a piece of legislation that was gift wrapped for me, I will say that, by a tremendous group, the Friends of Gwynns Falls Leakin Park, that's led by a former journalist, Mike Cross Barnett, used to write for the Baltimore Sun, and their president, he's their executive director, and their president is a young sister who is dynamic. Her name is Erica Lewis, and they together, along with their board, have been the protectors of Gwynns Falls Leakin Park. Now, you know Leakin Park.
It has a heck of a history.
Going back to The Wire, to me watching The Wire, the line from The Wire
is a lot of dead parties is in that park, baby.
Right. They say Leakin Park is where Baltimore goes to bury its dead. Right?
That's
75 bodies found in that park since 1940, and they probably haven't found them all.
They probably haven't found them. Wow.
Correct. How many people from the city of Baltimore do you think are in management positions to manage Leakin Park?
Zero.
One. To my knowledge.
Really?
To my knowledge. You know, not counting the director of the Recs and Parks, but there's one dedicated managerial person for that park, because it's a 1,200 acre park.
It's huge.
It's the second largest natural urban wildlife park in the country.
Really?
Yeah, it is one of the biggest bird sanctuaries and bird watching destinations on the East Coast. But it's been underfunded, right? And people know that. And when you know that you can go into soft areas of a city and do your dirt, and build encampments, and stalk people, and dump your trash and your mattresses and your couches, and just abuse the park. That's what you get when you don't have that type of attention and care, TLC, poured into the park. And so the Friends of the Park said to themselves, what if we were able to create a partnership between the city and the state to have state resources poured into this park and to have it designated as a state park? Now, there's only 2 jurisdictions in the entire state that do not have state parks, and one of them is Baltimore City. We have no state parks.
All the parks are city parks. All the lakes, none of them are state parks.
They're all city parks. So that means they don't get the benefit of any
they don't get that federal funding, baby,
from the Department of Natural Resources.
Yeah, wow.
But the Department of Natural Resources really has already done this model in a couple different places in Montgomery County, at Tubman Park down in Cambridge, and there's also a park, Port Deposit out in Cecil County, where they have done this model of creating a partnership between the local jurisdiction and the state to create a park partnership. And so it simply just made perfect sense They like I said, they gift wrapped this for me. I put the legislation in and was able to be the vessel that championed it in front of the Environment and Transportation Committee in the House and the Education, Environment, and Energy Committee in the Senate, along with my senator, my forever senator, the people's champion, Jill P. Carter, who we went to bat together.
Salute to Jill
not only
P.
on this, but on many different criminal justice reform initiatives. But on this was a no-brainer. And so we were able to get that passed into law that created a task force that will create the plan to then implement the establishment of Gwynns Falls State Park, leaving Leakin Park in the past and moving into a bright, positive, powerful future of recreation, community building, and hopefully economic development because of the influx of people from the region that will come in. And guess what we just happen to have is development in the Walbrook Junction corridor with people investing in the renovation of Walbrook Junction Shopping Center and investment to the south in Emerson Village Shopping Center, where they're just now about to get permits to put restaurant pads on the parking lot of Emerson Village Shopping Center and complete overhaul of Emerson Village.
Get Popeyes out of there. Get him out of there.
Look, I don't want to speak on anybody's legal contract, so I'm gonna stay up out of that. But you've got the Uplands that is presided over by the good brother, Mr. President David Smallwood, who runs that community association, and the Uplands development that we just did the ribbon cutting for a couple months ago for the second phase of the Uplands development that's right there across the street from Emerson Village.
So they're gonna do another phase because when I got out of college, fun fact, I lived in Uplands.
Wow.
I lived in those brown brick apartments.
Wow.
So I know Uplands very well.
Let me tell you this: when I was a kid,
we went to 7-Eleven all the time.
Right. So look, when I was a kid, my closest cousin Corey grew up on Glen Hunt Avenue, right off of Wildwood Parkway, and his mom, my auntie, she would let us go play out in the community, but she told us, you better not cross Emerson Avenue. Right? It was like I said this at the Uplands ribbon cutting. It was like that scene in The Lion King where they're looking over at the elephant graveyard, and Mufasa says, "You must never go there."
Don't cross them apartments.
Don't you cross Emerson Avenue, right? But it's a whole new day now, right? It's a whole new day.
All of that's gone. All of that's gone.
And now, there's development there that is positive, that is beautiful. I was able to look at those places. So there's just so much positivity happening in the parts of the district that haven't been the focal point of attention historically over the past couple of years. So that is what really gives me so much encouragement about moving forward and continuing to be in leadership on the state level in the 41st district to make sure that everybody's voices are heard and that we are getting the the resources, the policy decisions, and just plain strong leadership that's practical, and sensical, and responsive to what the people want.
Well, what I do want to say, Brother Ruff, is that our community, especially in Baltimore, we're looking at a city that I think is about 67% Black.
Correct.
Black people are everywhere, and we need Black people in the legislation. We need them as a part of the delegation, because you can't really legislate for something that you've never been, or you don't know their traumas and their struggles. So to have you there crafting this type of policy that is going to trickle down to us, because most policy stays at a level where it's more corporate. It doesn't come down to the people. And so that's why we need to have Black people in the delegation. So we appreciate your presence. We need you there. We need that. Jill Carter has held it down. I promise you, she has. My sister. Let's talk about her a little, because she's
oh my
stepped
goodness.
down.
Let me tell you, hearing about how hard her struggle has been as a
Yes.
legislator for 20 years in Maryland.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
she was just given the blues for
The
all of
blue.
her ideas and
Yep.
progressive policies about how Black people should be treated. And
Absolutely.
she lives in the legacy of her father, who was a true freedom fighter. She embodies that,
Yep.
right? They don't call her the people's champion for nothing. And
Mm-mm.
so she had been proposing progressive criminal justice reform to ensure that we weren't locking up children,
Yep.
to ensure that we were trying to create more parity as far as demographically who was being arrested.
Yep.
And they didn't listen to her, right? We're in a state right now that
Locking
incarcerates
children up. Jill has been on
more
it.
per capita, more Black people than Alabama and Mississippi.
Maryland.
Let that
Yes.
sink in. This is Maryland. We're supposed to be the most progressive southern state in the country.
Say it again. Say it again,
But we
Malcolm. Say it again.
are underneath the Mason-Dixon line, right? And
Say it again.
so,
No. Let people hear that again. That what
yeah,
does Maryland do?
we have a larger percentage of Black people per capita incarcerated in Maryland than in Mississippi and Alabama.
Absolutely. We do.
We
Sad.
do.
We
And
do.
it's about policy, right? So when you
Right.
create policy that emboldens white supremacy, this is the outcome.
Woo.
This is the outcome. And Jill has consistently been met on every turn with opposition until 2021, when we brought the JRA, the Juvenile Restoration Act, and the act to reform public information and to reform police accountability. We got rid of the law enforcement officers' Bill of Rights, right?
Bye-bye.
Which was a codification
A sham.
of a collective bargaining agreement in law
Yes.
that
Yes.
gave police officers almost unfettered ability to be protected from scrutiny and from accountability.
Yep.
Jill did all of that, and she had been proposing that for almost 2 decades. And then when finally 2020 happens, people think it's genius. But she had
Yes.
been saying this, the same consistent argument, the same consistent fight, and the same consistent advocacy for Black people for years and years and years. So
Yes.
I'm
Something
just glad
catastrophic
that she was
happens,
able to say it again.
Malcolm. Something catastrophic has to always be sometimes the trigger to these type of policies. But she was a forward thinker, and she's always been in this space. And now we are all celebrating as if it just happened. She's been walking like this for years.
Yeah, I'm just glad she was able to leave on her own terms.
Yes.
Powerfully, with receiving her flowers and moving on to a place where she still can stand up for Black people in a place that will create economic parity. Right now, she's able to be on the Board of Contract Appeals and to ensure that people from all walks of life are not getting a raw deal when it comes to state contract procurement. And I know she will do that expertly. She's going to ensure that we are doing the right things when it comes to doling out state contracts. But I will certainly still be relying on her and her expertise and her warrior spirit to ensure that I'm doing the right thing. So one of the things that I'm working on right now is a expansive expungement legislation. Right now in the state of Maryland, there are dozens of criminal offenses, from very serious to not so serious, that simply can never be expunged from anyone's record.
Really?
And so how are we ever going to create a clean slate for folks that truly deserve it until we create policy that says there is a road to redemption no matter what you do?
Yes.
Because Nobody is a monolith.
Yes, it
And
has.
everybody deserves to have a second chance, at least a opportunity to be heard about a second chance. So what this bill does, and for everybody out there, it is House Bill 55. It is called the Good Cause Expungement Bill. And it will be heard in front of the House of Delegates Judiciary Committee on March the 4th this year. So if anybody thinks that they have poignant testimony to offer, I invite you to contact me and to take the opportunity to either come to Annapolis or to make some written testimony or to testify virtually in front of the House Judiciary Committee about why this piece of legislation is so important. And I'll tell you why it's so important is that there are people who have done terrible things, people who have made terrible mistakes, who are completely different people today, that deserve the right to go in front of a judge and present their case to that judge. That likely is the judge that sentenced them, to say, I may have been somebody who committed a really heinous act, or like I said, not so heinous, like driving under the influence. Not expungible in Maryland. Really? You will never be able to get it off your record, even if you get a probation before judgment. You cannot get that off of your record.
So it affects you for life. Your insurance, your
job market, housing market, dating market. You know, these ladies, if you're not looking on Maryland Judiciary Case Search, you don't know how to date.
Right? You better look.
Right. So that's a stain.
Yes.
That's a stain forever on somebody's record. And if you've been a person that's done something like that, but then you've tapped in to community work, you've tapped into mentoring, you've tapped into educating the community, you've tapped into bringing resources to the community, you have changed your life, you have done so much to make sure that you have become a different person, then you deserve the opportunity to at least be heard as to whether you have proven that you deserve a second chance. And so this bill asked the court to look at a few things. It asked the court to look at the nature of the crime. We're not asking the court to ignore that, right? We're asking the court to say, okay, this person committed an armed robbery. That's serious. That's dangerous. It is has a deleterious effect on the community. Then we're looking at the person's history and their character. Judges are supposed to be able to determine and to assess somebody's character. So you get the opportunity to present on that. Whether somebody is a current risk to public safety, as opposed to what they were when they were first convicted. Do they have the indications of being successfully rehabilitated into the community? How much time has passed, right? That has to be a factor. How much time has passed since this has happened? And then this is the most important factor. What's the impact that the charges have had on that person's ability to get employed, to have education, to get housing, to get public assistance, to get licensing, or any other type of opportunity for economic stability?
Wow. You see what Brother Kwame
Who's this? Brother Kwame.
Exactly. I committed a crime 40 years ago.
Brother Kwame, if I don't get an email from you,
you better call up Kwame.
So this is the stage right here where we can say, as a legislature, as a state, we are willing to invest in people's second chances.
Yes.
In wiping the slate clean and saying, and you know what? Some of the people that are most in favor of this are victims who want closure. And the best closure you can give somebody is to say, this person did my family completely wrong 40 years ago. But guess what? They have poured into the life of 200, 500, 1,000, a whole community of people. And because of them, other people are flourishing, and they deserve the right to be fully restored into our community. And that is the way that will actually honor my loved one who was the result of whatever they did in the past, and that has now caused them to become a completely different person in the future.
You know what? It's so important. How can we be a Christian nation and have no road to redemption, or no way that people can change and they can come on and they can be better people? We have to look at that. Is that this system of justice that we've created is steeped in penalization, but very thin in redemption. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, the criminal justice system is equivalent to modern day lynchings. Ooh. It's the truth, right? The way Black people are funneled into the system is the same way Black people were funneled into that type of brutality. And then at the end of the day, that type of oppressive, violent oppression is a form of control. And so we have to take it back. We have to set the captives free. And this is not about giving people a free pass, right?
Isn't.
This is about giving the discretion to the people that we've entrusted to be the judges of our courts across this state, to have the ability to discern whether or not somebody deserves this chance. It's not appealable, right? If you get denied, you're stuck. Like that. That's it. The judge has spoken. You can't make another petition for another 5 years, right? Wow. This is not just a carte blanche you can file every month. This is for the people who really have a good case to make, and they're willing to take that shot to say, and you know what else it would do? And I'm sorry that it's kind of just coming back to me. What it does is creates an incentive. Right.
For people to change.
Right.
Like if you do this, this will go away. If you do
good, I have to become the best version of myself if I know that in 10 years
it's never going away.
This is never going away. And I will always hit my head on that wall.
But the people who are in fear, who keep this, they don't think like that. They don't think that these are incentives to change our whole community. When we give people light, we give them a way out. We have to do this. But one thing I want to say also, Brother Ruff, is we got to start thinking about voting some of these old heads out. They got to go. You know, some of these legislators and folks who've been there too long, who have a very, I would say, not oppressive thought, but a archaic thought about how to run and control folks instead of being open and allowing people to grow. We stay in this mindset of fear and controlling everything. We got to look at getting some of these people out. You look at the Maryland legislature, some of these people have been sitting too long. They've been sitting too damn long. I'm serious.
I hear you. But what I will say is on the flip side is that we really do have some very astute, bright, young, Black minds in the legislature. We have the Legislative Black Caucus, which is a powerhouse in Annapolis.
Excellent.
We have an agenda that very much encompasses Black freedom, Black liberation, Black wealth, Black health, Black prosperity, and really sharp minds from all over the state, led by our chair of the Black Caucus, Delegate Janelle Wilkins. I'm proud to be a member of the Black Caucus, the largest Black caucus in the country.
Really?
And absolutely. We are 66 members strong, and we are all over the state, like I said. I serve as one of the co-chairs of the Appointments and Nominations Committee. So we weigh in on who are going to be the next judges, who are going to be the next political appointees of the administration. And I also sit on the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Subcommittee, led by Delegate Deborah Davis down in Charles County, who is one of the sharpest, most progressive minds on criminal justice reform. So I am just, I am hopeful when I look at our Black caucus, because we really do have powerful people. And when we finally get all on the same page about the direction of our people, we won't be stopped. We won't be stopped.
I love it. I definitely love. Listen, you're just a fountain of information. You gotta listen. You gotta come talk to the people once in a while. You gotta come sit with your sister and let's talk about these bills and talk about what you're doing. Because a lot of times we don't understand the mechanisms of legislation and bills and how they come about and the subcommittees and the things that you and when we need to show up. Because sometimes
Yeah,
Black folks, we need to show up. We got to support what's going through for us. It's not just depend on Malcolm. We got to show up and hold him down sometimes. And so we
absolutely.
need to hear this more. And so maybe you're coming at once a quarter and drop some jewels on us and tell us what's going down. And because we need to hear it for
Of
sure.
course, the only way for the information to get out there is for us to open our mouths and to shout it out loud. So absolutely, I will. Oh, look at my wifey.
I know you know how to put
Shout
Sydney.
it out.
Shout out to Sydney. Shout out to Sydney. And I need to talk to her. I want to talk about blue water. Me and her got to talk about that environmental thing. So shout out to her. This is wifey. You got to put wifey up because she allowed you to be
Absolutely.
out here doing your thing. And so that's a beautiful thing.
She done put all them children to bed and still up watching me.
Now she can stay and watch you. I love it. How old are your kids? What's their ages?
Our oldest is 16. She's a ballerina at Baltimore School for the Arts, and
Really?
amazing athlete artist. Our 10-year-old is a young boy he's in 4th grade. He's actually at Gilman. He is going to be hopefully the first 3rd generation African American student to graduate from the school. Just a bright kid, really, really sharp, and a huge reader. And then we have a 7-year-old girl who we named after Ella Baker and Ella Fitzgerald.
I love it, Ella.
Yeah, and she is a fire plug. I don't worry about her ever not being able to speak up for herself.
Oh, she's one of them, man.
And then we have a 4-year-old boy, and he's named after me. And he is just a joy, but also.
So you got boy, girl.
Two and two.
I love it. So you batting anymore? We're gonna get one more.
No more.
Sydney, like, you better shut up, sis.
Never again.
No more.
We are done.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. And so, listen, Malcolm. This has been a great interview. Because I usually, I don't like the politics.
This is great.
I really appreciate you just dropping all this knowledge on us. I know it's snowing. I know you kind of you're inside Annapolis. You didn't get to go home tonight, so you was able to sit with your sister and let's chop it up. And listen, I'm sure people are going to come back and get a lot of knowledge from this joint. This joint was popping, so I really appreciate you. We've been here an hour, almost 2 hours.
Almost.
I can't even believe it. It's been so.
What happens when you are focused,
that 211, bro. I know that.
No 211 over here. I not since college.
I'm saying it brought us together. 211.
Yeah, 211. The date definitely brought us together.
The date brought us together.
I'm very, very, very honored to be on your show. I hope that folks do come back and visit this episode, and don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm on IG. As you know, we got linked up. Yeah, my IG link is just at brother with an A, BROTHA _ Malcolm, MALCOLM. Don't forget the second L, like Malcolm X. And then it's ESQ for Esquire. So brother _ Malcolm ESQ on IG. Please follow me. You'll see a lot of the things that I talked about today on my page, and some of the prior cases and legislation and work of the Black Caucus. This is the support that we need.
Did I get it right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's it right there.
Hit him up. We need to keep this brother, and we got to support him. The 41st is January right now. There's some things going on, but the brother is still standing. We're gonna get him here, and we're gonna get him back in there. So listen, I need your jewel for the night. You gotta drop some bars. I don't care what you say. You done light up my mic. You gotta drop some lines, and I know you can give him that voice. I know you can sing. I heard you sing. Come on.
Oh, you want me to sing? You gotta give me something to sing.
Anything you want. Something that's we live in a chaotic time. What's going on? I don't know.
That's crazy. Uh,
Really? I don't know.
you know, we gotta find a way to bring some loving here today. Picket signs, picket lines. Don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me so you can see what's going on.
Oh my goodness. Malcolm, you have a beautiful, your voice is so rich. I've heard you sing before. This guy is so multi-talented. He's intelligent. He's an attorney, a civil rights attorney. He's fighting for us. He is a policymaker. He's a Renaissance man. He's a Gilman grad. He's a Duke grad. This guy here and he can sing, baby. Hold the other down. He a triple threat, quadruple threat.
My mama raised me right.
Real right. Listen, and shout out to you said Miss Roberta Ruff.
Martha Roberta Ruff.
Martha Roberta. Shout out to Martha Roberta Ruff. Listen, I would love to talk to her. She's a librarian. Ain't many black lady librarians. I would love to talk to her. But listen,
I want to put Paul Robeson in my face.
Woo. She gave you everything. Listen, we are everything.
Athlete, artist.
Wow. Yeah. She poured into your roots. She definitely did. She poured into your roots, and now you're the flower. So you have definitely just bursted tonight. I appreciate this, and I'm gonna hit you again. Come up and let's talk some more about what's going on, and keep the people kind of in the flow, so they can be more acclimated with the process. Because a lot of times we just don't know.
Absolutely, I'll be ready to come back. It's been a blessing to speak with you, Queen. Like I said at the very beginning, this space that you create for us should not be taken for granted. It's very, very valuable. You're adding so much value to our community, and I just want to just give you your accolades for that, and just have so much thanks to you for standing in it. And I know it ain't easy, and it's it's a whole production. And you might not get the feedback that you need to keep you motivated, but stay the course, because we need you to keep this platform going.
I appreciate that. Listen, we're going to get in touch. Guys, this has been the Men in Black series. This is 6 of 8. Mr. Malcolm P. Ruff, Esquire. He has definitely hit us up tonight. Please like, share, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave some comments. And listen, if you got some issues, hit the brother up. Hit him up. IG brother_Malcolm Esquire. We are out of here. We're going to put some deuces in there. Say good night, bro. We're gone.
Good night to the people, and power to the people.
Power to the people. Don't go. I got to talk to you. Don't go nowhere. That's it.